We're the sponsor of this event. We're proud to be the sponsor. And I'm going to introduce, as I put my glasses on so I can see what the heck I'm doing, proud to introduce the seminar, Demystifying AI, your 5-step roadmap to success. This is the session for that. If you're not in AI, you're in the wrong room. So I'm going to pass this on to the President of AI, Martin McGarry. I'm just going to quickly say I'm one of the old guys here. We computerized back in 1978, fax machine in 1980, went on the internet in 1994, and I'm using ChatGPT now, writing speeches and writing proposals, which is, we just take 20 minutes to write a speech, now it takes an hour. So it's useful.
People still have faxes and
like
all that's still there, so everyone has legacy.
Oh yeah, we're back in the 80s. Anyhow, congratulations on your
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm the president of Ronson AI here in Ottawa. We're based with a small consulting firm, 20 people, and doing projects across Canada. But, I'll get talking about AI and demystifying AI. I certainly think there's a lot of modernization going on. I think my main first message is this is the single greatest time in my lifetime anyway to modernize. Like, we have so much legacy systems, fax machines, DOS systems, things that are basically have been gone for a long time, but people haven't modernized because there's been a barrier to entry. If your competitors, if they modernized 5 years ago, you have a chance to jumpstart from where they are, because it's just this technology is changing so fast, as you can all see on the kind of consumer side, but it's the same on the business side. And yeah, I think now is the time. I think that's the biggest message I'd like you to take away. We all have legacy systems, Bronson do too, but if you have corporate systems that are ready for kind of throwing into the garbage bin, and think about doing something there. What is AI? Obviously we talk about AI, everything, even golf club design. Like, I'm a golfer, like, oh my god, another AI golf club. But really we have, in the enterprise, we have the enterprise system AI, and we have individual productivity AI, which is kind of ChatGPT and Gen AI. We have opportunities in both in businesses, certainly in the construction industry, process automation, unification of data systems, getting rid of that legacy stuff, even have back-end systems where the cost of ownership is really expensive, both from a maintenance perspective and from a kind of ongoing support perspective. So some of these systems have very expensive licenses, and you really have a chance to modernize. We also have the big opportunity we're all using right now, which is to use the Gen AI that we're using to draft documents and speeches in 5 minutes. They have their issues, and this talk is not about that, but certainly the level of sophistication. I just did an event yesterday morning, and my message there was the future of work is changing. Like, we literally do work in a different fashion, and we need to really embrace that, otherwise our competitors will be left behind. The other message here is, I think a lot of people think that you have to spend millions and millions of dollars on a system. You really don't need to do that. Even 3 years ago, system implementation would have been probably double what it is now. They're both in the requirements gathering and the definition phases, the delivery phases, and the rollout. The cost of deploying new systems with the Gen AI and other AI platforms is certainly not a $10 million AI single source of truth. There's other things for it, and I really don't think there's a business case for doing these massive projects. Yes, you just don't get the business benefits quick enough. You've got all these massive consulting projects. We're a small consulting firm. I'm from big consulting. I want my clients to succeed with me and bring my clients along, and that's not doing massive projects. What we like to do is focus on real pilots, real small improvements in what you do, and build on those, get the buy-in from the organization, change management, get some wins, use those wins to actually fuel future benefits, so you don't just end up creating a huge cost in the organization. The next part of the slides is looking at, I'm going to introduce you to Dan. Dan is going to talk to you about an actual real implementation where you start to see some of these real productivity gains, and you can build and they can pay for themselves. We did a pilot and a set of programs in Alberta with a construction firm, and we're helping them on all aspects of their back office, front office, implementing HR systems, financial systems support, everything from estimating to supply chain. And Dan's going to give you an overview of that process. Dan, do you want to come over? So Dan is my VP of, do you want to come up there? He's my VP of Data Strategy and Governance, and he's on the, he is leading that project, so he's probably the best person to talk about it.
So how many people here actually use AI? So the first thing is here. Whether we like it or not, it's here. And in your organization, whether you implement it as an organization or somebody uses it themselves, it's going to be used. And we can't go back from that now. We can only move forward. And so really the aim of this 5-step approach that we've been using, and when you think about it, companies haven't been doing this for very long. So this isn't something that's been out there for a very, very long time, these methodologies, etc. It's only the companies that are actually doing it that are making mistakes, they're learning, and then they're able to pull together a recipe for success each time. So, I don't know if you know the statistics, but I think only about 20% of AI projects succeed. That's a massive, massive impact. And that's a lot of investment for very little output. And so, our aim here is to walk through what we've learned and really share with you to try and sort of meet you where you are. Some of you are going to be more, advanced and mature in your organisations. Others aren't. But if you can at least focus on how am I getting from A to B, and you can take away value, then that's really the best thing that we can hope for. So take a look at the screen there. Any of you recognise some of those items on there in your own organisations? Even Bronson has those. Not all of them, but some of them. So it's a very common thing. And so what we want to enable you to do is to be able to approach improvement step by step. The idea is you want to get value as soon as possible. Don't wait a year to implement a full AI solution. Implement gradually. Identify the use cases that are causing you pain. Get those quick wins. Get that buy-in. Start realizing value, and then move forward. So our 5-step approach really identifies that kind of steps. So step 1, start with the problem, don't start with the technology. Okay? Think with the end in mind. What would it be like if? What would it be like if all these invoices didn't take me 12 hours to hand copy into my system? You know, what if I didn't have to count everything every single week? What if I didn't have to do all this reporting? What if? And start identifying with your teams the problems. What are the problems we're facing on a day-to-day basis? We'll sit down with the teams, was just start talking openly. What are the problems here? Where are we getting the data from? What is the data? What's breaking? What's not breaking? What's working? What's not working? And from that, you can start to build up, we call it a backlog, a list, shopping list, whatever you want to call it, of items that are causing you a lot of pain. We'll then go through each one of those and think about, well, what value is solving this problem going to give us? If I solve this, how many hours am I going to save? How many dollars am I going to save? How much credibility, because I've got it right, am I going to save? Once you start having all those things together, you can then start identifying, well, actually, these things here are more important than these items here. Okay, so you're building up a simple shopping list of value. That's key. You want to make sure you're going to get value. As you're going through these conversations, really think deeply about what the end could look like or what the problem is. Like, we need AI is not a good, it's not a good solution, it's not a, it doesn't mean anything. How can you measure we need AI? But you can measure, this is going to save me 5 hours, this is going to save me 20 hours by doing X, Y, and Z. So as we go through, I'm going to try and introduce some of the use cases that we've run up against, and some of these might actually be relevant to yourselves. So, a particular construction firm that we've been working for, we spent, they had nothing, zero processes, like nothing. We spent around 4 months with them, and in that 4 months, we were able to identify about 90 discrete use cases. We were able to get them set up on an enterprise AI solution, like Claude or ChatGPT, or whatever it was that they decided that they would work for best for them. We identified with them what the key pain points were. We identified the key areas of value. On top of that, we identified who the key champions might be and who those people who might be a bit more skeptical, a bit harder, they've been working out in the fields for such a long time, they don't see what value is. Step 2 is really understanding what you have. When you start looking at the problem and you start thinking about, okay, well, what might this be like when we've solved it? Well, what data do we actually need? What data do we have? Are we collecting the right data? If we are collecting the right data, is it clean? Is it consistent? Is it, oh, I'm just doing this at the side of my desk and I'm just filling out a form and I'm just doing a report? Or is it actual data that you can make decisions from? So you've really got to take a look at that and identify, is this data, is it secure, is it being accessed by the right people, is it clean, is it accurate? If not, then you know you've got something to look into. So this particular organisation, billing letters, job trackers, fleet systems, deployment sheets, dailies, all those types of things, all over the place. Some of them manual, some of them whiteboard, some of them in Excel, some of them in the ERP system, none of it connected together, multiple sources of truth. They didn't really know which system actually was providing the right information. And so, as we sat down with them, these are some of those use cases that came out. And then we worked with them to identify, okay, well, which ones of these would you like to start first? And in this particular organisation, the billing letters, which were coming in PDFs, various different formats, but fairly consistent formats, but it was something that we could work with them on, and we were able to work with them and sift the data out of those PDFs and suck them into a form that they could then use. So something that was taking them 18 hours a week would then take them 5-10 minutes plus some checking. Okay. That's a simple use case. It's not offensive, it's taking someone's pain away, really easy to do. And so, for an organisation who was a little bit sceptical, for us to, within 4 or 5 weeks of kicking it off, to be actually able to help them see something like that was really powerful. So this was a step beyond just the personal productivity. This was actually starting to connect their business. The next thing that's really, really important, and I think I'm actually going to focus on the top left and the bottom right here. Okay? The business champion is probably the single most important person in any change team. If the person at the top is fully bought in, invested, prepared to go through the pain, try things themselves, stay motivated and keep the direction, and that then throws through the organisation. If you're working in patches here and there, change doesn't really last. So having that business champion is absolutely key. The organisation that we were working from, their CEO was absolutely gangbusters for it. Absolutely all over it. And so that's really helped to get the message all the way across. And we've been actually able to work with him on his business vision as to where he wants to be, which meant that we could then link his use cases and connect the dots back to his vision, so that the value that was being driven by every single one of these use cases was actually driving and supporting him in his journey to take that business where he wanted it. The second most important one here, I believe, is the change agent. So organizations do not change. People change. And if people don't change, your return on investment has completely gone. So bringing the people along with you on the journey, getting them excited, getting them to see the value, to feel the value, to have the pain taken away, is amazing, because that then gets that ball rolling. Okay, step 4. Run a focused pilot. So in this particular case, we took their billing, letters, we worked with the billing team, we took examples of the various different invoices that came through, we identified areas where, here's the really common stuff, here's the stuff that comes through every now and then, this is how we process it, this is what we do. And then we were able to then replicate that through our AI so that we were in essence following their process. What we didn't do was try and do 6 or 7 things at once. We wanted to make sure that they had something workable, usable, and adding value to them every single day within about 4 weeks. If we couldn't do that, then we failed. Okay? The thing you find with a lot of data work is it's sort of invisible. So if you're not delivering value, you're spending months and months and months and months not seeing anything, then the credibility goes. But if you're actually driving value and people are using it, then they want more, they want more, they want more, and then the change sort of delivers itself. So here's a bit of statistics. So success criteria for us was to get about 95% of their manual process accurate. And by accurate, I mean 95% of what was coming through we could actually automate There were still some fringe cases, you know, invoices and things coming through in a standard format. You know, you still need that human in the loop. But we were able to save them about 80% of their time just for this little use case. So that's pretty massive. Step 5, scale with a repeatable foundation. So one of the things that we've learned is that a lot of organizations don't talk data. They don't talk tech. So we deal with organizations that are very tech focused. So you can talk to them about data stewards and data governance and this, that, and the other. A lot of our clients end up talking about. You know, we just lose them straight away. So what we've had to do is be able to build these management systems, this data management structure behind the scenes, and bring them along with it, using their language, things that they actually understand. And as a result of that, we've been able to start building that initial data structure. So if you think about it, you do one use case, and then all of a sudden you've got chaotic data, and then you've got structured. You do another use case, chaotic, structured, another use case. Over a period of time, you've built up this order, and by that time, they've started owning the data, they've started owning the processes, they're seeing the value. They're seeing the value when things go wrong. When somebody is not providing the right data or something isn't quite happening as per their process, it stands out like a sore thumb. Because they're going from chaos to this order. And so they pick up on things all the time. The data architecture has been a key thing that helps with that scalability. Having some governance. First things we've often done is help people write an AI policy. There's a lot of fear around, oh, I'm sharing data, what can I, what should I do, what shouldn't I do, what can I use, what can't I use? And without some kind of top-down guardrails for the organisation, people don't like the word policy. And policies in small organisations, people don't typically enforce them. But if people understand the guardrails, don't put commercial information here. Don't use this for that. Okay? Having those guardrails in place, so then you can work with the organisation. And as the use cases develop and they start pushing the boundaries of those policies, then you can start thinking about, okay, well, in this particular instance, what are the risks? And then you can make informed decisions.
Just on that, Dan, I was wondering how many people have an AI policy in the room? Like, are people just have shadow AI and people are using it on a personal basis, or?
Have you heard of the term
shadow AI is people using your own ChatGPT account, your personalized account, to all of a sudden do business processes. Does anybody recognize that policy? Like, just quick show of hands. Yeah. Third of the room. Yeah, so I think because of these tools are so transformational, we have tended to just stop using them in that kind of fashion, and organizations can get in trouble that way. So that's the reason not to put your head in the sand and say, okay, well, we're not sure what we're going to do, so we're not going to do anything. So I think that one of the first things to do is to realize that people are using these AI tools and decide what processes and what policy you have in place, and that's key. And people are talking about it, like, just to kind of address the elephant in the room and kind of bite that off.
Third item on here is really about cross-functional alignment. I'm sure a lot of organisations, you've got an HR department that doesn't talk to the PMO, that doesn't talk to the procurement department, that doesn't talk to the billing department, that doesn't talk to, so an RFP comes in and, you know, nobody knows really what the pipeline is until it's been dumped on them, and all of a sudden people are scrambling, putting together estimates or whatever it might be. So one of the things that we've learned as we've gone along is really some of these things start opening up that dialogue across the organisation, you actually start finding that, there's an interface between billing and finance, for example, and procurement. And is there a PO? Well, no, somebody just bought something on their credit card, I don't know. And so these connected dots suddenly bring people together. And so starting again with these small use cases, like really, really simple, that might involve 2 or 3 people from perhaps 2 or 3 different parts of the organisation. You suddenly start connecting those dots. It's like your brain starts firing off as it starts to make new connections. So bringing these things together really does help from an organisational perspective as well. So, in our construction example, 4 months from nothing, enterprise AI system, a data layer where things need to connect, and generating value through this particular billing use case. We didn't really do anything crazy. Like, this wasn't a 10 million AI system. Like, this was just 60 days worth of work. Like, it was. So in the greater scheme of things, the message is you don't have to be spending huge amounts of money. You need to be focusing on the right things in the right way, and then start building.
So what size of construction company was it? We're talking about 30 employees, 10 employees?
Well, obviously it depends on construction season, but core, it's about 30 employees in back office.
Do you have your own tools that you've developed?
We use proprietary tools the majority of the time, and we typically use what the organisations have. Will help them on their investment path, will help them identify if you want to go from here to here, then these are the things that you want to be thinking about, and here are some options to get you there. But for the most part, if you've got a data connection layer, so if you're using Microsoft Office Suite, then that will come with Azure. You can enable that. If you're using enterprise, I don't know, ChatGPT or Claude, or you've got the bones there to create this huge value. It's just not everybody knows how to do it. Okay? And so just with a little bit of help, you can actually start connecting the dots. And as you start developing those efficiencies, you start seeing where the real needs are, not the data quality needs, or we need this because this is going to help us with our pipeline. We can manage our pipeline. We can see what's coming through. We can see what our bottom line is. We've got accurate financial information. Okay, we're not waiting because it takes 2 months for the invoices to connect, and then we've got a real dashboard of how much money we've been spending. Things like that. So putting it all together, this is really just a sense of what we did in that particular organisation. Very, very light touch, huge amounts of value. We've got another 2, maybe 3 years with them. They're doing a full modernisation. They have quite a big vision of where they want to be positioning themselves in the market. So we'll be helping them all the way. But again, it's fundamental stuff that you can do in a small organisation, medium organisation, or a large organisation. It's really just that step.
Is there any risk of leakage of information? For example, in our company, we are allowed to use Copilot. And I wanted to know, so based on what you were saying, I assume that you will be, in a way, consuming that platform, or in case you want to, for example, right? So imagine that platform is the backbone of analysis and everything. Isn't there any risk of leaking this info outside of the company where it becomes,
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I didn't know few months back. You know, as ChatGPT and Gemini, etc., come out, you've got various different layers of subscription. Well, typically, when you get into the enterprise or the team layers, the contract you have with them covers that. Like that privacy, that you're not allowed to train, you're not allowed to share, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. It is a contractually binding agreement. Is that to say that that doesn't happen? From a contractual perspective, and obviously if you can imagine the class action lawsuit that would follow with the amount of people that are sharing things, you know. So
Yeah, I think this is the whole shadow IT, the shadow AI, is people are using these systems and then they don't have a team account. Even organizations who think they do or they don't care, all of a sudden somebody is using it for something very sensitive, and all of a sudden the information is leaked. So you do need to maybe get on top of this and say, make sure, like, okay, it's an extra $10 a month per employee, but actually my information is not being leaked. So it is kind of critical. Bronson ourselves are SOC 2 compliant, which has really stringent capabilities on requirements on data sovereignty and where the data is held. And all of these companies have that too. So yeah, they would be breaking their contractual arrangement as long as you have that team or enterprise solution, and each one has their own.
Can you imagine you're in a situation where you're using your personal ChatGPT to create a proposal? You know, loading up the proposal and the RFP, and then you're putting all your pricing information in, and it's coming up with it's a wonderful output about your information. But if you've got an enterprise grade contract, then you're secure. Okay. So what goes wrong and how to avoid it? Like I said at the beginning, starting with technology. I always remember, every night I'm a doom scroller, so I'll sit there and lie on Instagram or whatever, and every now and then something like, who was the Apple guy, Steve Jobs? Yeah, somebody asked him a question about, what have you been doing for the last 5 years, and, we've got some of the best technology in the world, why aren't we, building this or that or the other? And I always remember his response that was stuck to me. It was like, well, the biggest challenge is to have that strategy of creating something that people will want and people will value, and having that client-centric, user-centric vision. Having the best technology and ramming it down somebody's throat, nobody's going to use it. They're not seeing the value. So that's why we say start with the problem. Solve the problem. Problems can be solved with technology, they can be solved with process, they can be solved with training. Okay, so don't always leap into the technology. It's going to be an expensive, painful experience. Don't treat AI as a one-time project. Like AI adoption, it really is a program. It's a continuous thing. Everybody's already started it. Everybody started it on their own. Playing around, what can it do, looking things up. People, if ever there's been a time where you have a captive audience, you have that. Like that stakeholder buying is ground up. So, really leverage it. Don't skip the human oversight. AI doesn't solve everything. You really got to know when to use it and when not to use it. And that's some of the key things as we're doing the problem solving and as we're doing design with people. We're looking at, okay, where does the human need to be here? Okay? You can't take the human out of the loop. You can't. Don't wait for perfect data. I'm not sure if it exists. as you go forward, what we're finding is, as we're working with clients, we're solving these little problems. All of a sudden, as we're going through prototyping, we're pulling out all these data issues that people can solve as we're going along. It's been highlighted, it's in your face.
I think on that is, when people have been working for decades and you put something wrong in a drop-down box and it has no impact on anybody, if you don't close that loop, then people just keep doing the data will be dirty forever. But once you start, people realise that there's somebody the other side of that or will help themselves, then the data will start to improve. And that's been the case for 20 years. If you are able to close the loop and say, well, please populate this field correctly or force the field to be populated correctly, then your data will start improving. And it's the same with traditional systems as well as AI systems.
Having no clear success criteria. How do you know when you've succeeded? How do you know what done is? If you don't know what done is, you're just going to burn money. Burn money. Yeah, we're almost there. Well, what about this? And then what about this? And what about this? So you need to be very, very clear about what success looks like. So I'll give you an example. A company that has millions and millions of SKUs in their catalogue. They're selling, I don't know, widgets, type of things. But they've got millions of stuff. They've got people out in the field calling them up, trying to find replacement parts, for example. You've got a person that's been working that job for 20 years. They know the catalogue inside out. You speak to them for 15, 20 minutes, they'll whittle it down and they'll find you what you need. But those people are fading out, retiring, and younger people aren't interested in that kind of stuff. So we work with an organisation on prototyping. Success for them wasn't getting 100%. Success for them was taking these millions of codes and getting it down to 100. Then that person could pick up the phone and have a conversation around. They just needed to get into that ballpark. They wanted to save that huge amount of time to get in the space where they could then have a client conversation. Okay? So be very clear. It's not always 100%. It's what's good enough, what do you need to gain value now. Always remember the change management. Organizations don't change, people change. You leave the people, you waste the time. Okay, so what are the 5 steps to take back to your teams then? So step 1, really sit down and start identifying what your top pain points are. You're not going to solve everything at once, so you don't need to get a huge list together. Just get together, identify what your key pains are, and identify the value that you can get out of it, the time saving, the cost benefit, whatever that value is to you. Everybody's value is different. For each of those problems, identify, well, do we have the data for this? Are we collecting the right information? Is that information accurate? Is it easily accessible? Do I know where the truth is? Get the right people in the room. HR talking to the PMO or purchasing, thank you very much. Purchasing, talking to finance, talking to the billing team, etc., etc. Get those, it might only be 3 people. You get 3 people in the room, you can do that. Let's map this out, let's see what we can do together. Identify what would look good in that short period of time. Like we said, we don't need that year-long program. How much value can we get in 3 months? Like, what tangible thing can we measure and commit to in 3 months? And the last one here, how do we design the pilot so it becomes the foundation for the next one? So ideally, we want a pilot that might actually start helping you set up the infrastructure behind the scenes. It helps you connect to Azure, it helps you connect with Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is that you're using. Okay, start building that layer that you can then repeat. Okay, the whole idea is that you can have repeatable things. If you start looking at processing and do this before this before this, you start putting together a model. Well, that model might be able to apply here, it might be able to apply here, it might be able to apply here, with minimal tweaks. Again, your economies of scale. So AI is not magic. Start with the pain points, identify the minimum amount of data that you need. Build the right foundation.
Just a comment there, like, it's very pragmatic approach. It's nothing complicated. Like, the technologies can be complicated, but if you just set, it's almost like a logical approach, and you can do it yourself, but you do need that high level buy-in. And once you get, it's kind of addictive, that change. Once you get a culture of change, you've lived with something for 20 years, and all of a sudden you have something better. There's a resistance to change. Like, even some of our timesheet systems, like I remember changing that 5-6 years ago, everyone complained, why are we changing timesheet system? But then it only took about 3 months before people realized, well, it's way better, that's why we changed. So, and then people were more open for the next time you did some change, and then you just kind of breeds that culture of change. And once you get there, then it's kind of downhill from there. I think at that point it's a good time for questions.
It is.
We do have a couple of microphones here. Do you want?
Yeah.
Who has a question?
Oh,
there we go.
I don't know if I need that. Everybody can hear me?
I think it's just for the recording.
Hi. I don't know if you can answer this. It's a strange question, but how come every time I ask it, prompt it, it tells me how much of a good person I am? And why am I so smart to ask this question? It's almost like it's trying to convince me of the answer. Why does it always do that?
Yeah, it can be sycophantic. Like the early models were so, and ChatGPT in particular, was so sycophantic you could kind of persuade it to anything, and it was kind of very. You don't want that. You want the opposite. You want a challenge function. When we go in a physical room with our colleagues and peers and leadership, we never go in there and everyone says, "Yeah, that's right." Yeah, imagine a discussion where everyone sits in a room. Yeah, that's right, John. Yeah, that's right, Jane. Oh yeah, you're great. Like that's not the real world. So you can actually start setting up the way that the model that you use, that it has that intermediate level. You don't want it to also say you're wrong all the time, because you want to, like, you're trying to get some constructive feedback. So there is, it's not really necessarily prompt engineering, but there's newer technologies and there's newer models which kind of remove that sycophantic nature of the how it comes back to you. And you can say, challenge me on this question, and it will actually challenge you, depending on which model it is. But yeah, the underlying models, especially the early ChatGPT models, were fundamentally coded to like make you feel good and would tell you that you're right. I had a hilarious exchange early on. I think I was. I'm from Britain and I love fish and chips, and we don't have a deep fat fryer because we're trying to be healthy or trying. Anyway, so I remember asking ChatGPT, can I do like beer battered fish in the air fryer? And it said, yeah, you can do it. This is how you do it. This is the whole thing. And like, this doesn't seem right to me, but I'll go ahead and do it. Of course, it turned out to be a disaster. And then I re-asked it, is that a good idea? And it said, no, it's not a good idea to do that. And like, well, you could have told me that in the first place. And it didn't tell me in the first place. So you do have to be smart about how you interact with these languages, but there are better ways to fundamentally the models are set up to be more challenging, and you can actually challenge it. You can code it to be challenging. Play the challenge function.
We have another question.
Thanks for a very interesting talk. As you mentioned, the exact AI can be used, you can use different things, etc. It's more about what you want to do in the end, but any thoughts on, are there better ones for specific types of applications or environments or businesses, or it's really a case by case. You can't really answer or comment on that.
It's definitely use case driven. So for instance, on research, Perplexity is fantastic for research for various reasons. It has multiple models. It provides all the links and citations. So we still use Perplexity for that kind of use case. The models are kind of playing leaf fence with each other. So 3 months ago, when I first started using Claude 4.6, I think it's Opus, I was just blown away by the difference between what that was producing for business documents than previous versions. And it was at that moment I realized that the future of work has changed, because the quality of the output was so much better than anything was previously. So we love Claude. Anthropic is, they do seem to be focused on an area. They're not focused on the kind of residential or the consumer. So, but I can't say that it's like tomorrow. Meta might come out with a better model for that, but right now, from our perspective, we do really like Anthropic because it is focused on that business, the knowledge worker, and producing documents, and the quality of the outputs are great. But you do need to make sure you know how to use them. Like, they have some sophisticated. I know it's one window. Like when Google first came along, it was the most amazing thing because it was one window. You just put a few things in it and you found a website. Like 30 years ago, it was like amazing. Usability was amazing. Some of these models, you do have the one window, but you do have some stuff underneath the covers which you need to use. And yeah, there's some training aspect to that. That's why the change management side of things. But yeah, the models are different. Horses for courses. I don't know if you have that term over here.
We're lucky. Glendon, who's sitting there, he's our director of AI, and is on the bleeding edge or
cutting edge. We like to say.
Cutting edge. That's it. He's on the cutting edge of everything. So he'll find something out, and then we'll start implementing it. And like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, or piloting.
Next week we're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Yeah. But it's changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
It is really, and I think you said earlier, like things are becoming so commoditized for the average person. You use the word, it's like your taste. Like, what's your specific taste? Do you like this, or do you like this, or do you like this? You can. They're all doing similar things to the lay person, and it's really, when you start looking at it from an enterprise perspective, that's really where, peeling back that layer below that is still accessible to everybody. This isn't something that's behind the scenes. Like, you peel back that layer of the standard enterprise capability.
I do think the sycophantic nature of some of those early models for enterprise solutions is way better. It's a lot better. There's definitely that kind of challenge function. It doesn't just agree with you all the time. So. But getting back to you do need to decide which one to use, and really that talks to how do you want to set up your systems. Your systems need to be flexible enough that in a year from now, if this one, and it's not just about the ability to produce a fantastic document. There's also a cost component here. So if you've got 10,000 people in your organization using the best and brightest model, you're going to spend a lot of money on Gen AI. It's going to undermine the benefits. Well, often you don't need that cutting edge model, so you have to make sure that your systems can change, which they can now. Any more questions?
Any other questions? No, hang on.
I think it all comes down to training. Do you guys have any recommendation on where we can find some training, either online, some videos, or something specific to construction, not just AI in general?
I don't know if there's anything specific to construction, but you could probably create it using the AI to say create some training for me for Claude or whatever. But yeah, it tends not to be industry driven. Like, I think each vertical market does obviously have different nomenclature and the way that they talk about things. So there's definitely a requirement in organizations to have training tailored to them. And the training, like obviously when we're doing training, we're tailoring it to the industry that we're in. But yeah, I don't think there's anything specific for that. I think these organizations like Anthropic and OpenAI, they're moving at such a fast pace on their own technology that they're not really necessarily thinking about the domain areas. They're just like, oh yeah, well, I'll put some generic out. And if it's not applicable to you, then that's a problem, I agree.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. I'll just mention Mercury Supply. We've been computerized in '78, so we have a massive amount of data, and we started using AI about a year ago, and it's quite amazing what we can pull out of our data.
Yeah, the historical data is a treasure trove. Like we use the data as your greatest untapped asset. That's our marketing term, and it's still true. It was created that like 10 years ago, and it's still true today. If you don't have the data, you can't do much with it. But if you have a lot of data, then the amount of stuff you can do with it now is just incredible. Computers
Amazing.
Yeah, crazy.
Yep. As I said earlier, I do a couple of speeches a year. I usually spend 20 hours on it because I'm standing in front of 600 people, so I want to make sure it's right. AI, I'll do it in an hour now, which is great for me. I don't like it, but we do a lot of research with AI, and it's amazing. So we'll be in touch. Again, big hand for Martin and Alex.
So thanks for coming. I thought there'd be like 3 people in the room, but
Good turnout.
It's good. It's a really, really good turnout for this late in the day.
Well, I think I'm the oldest guy in the room. We started computerizing back in '78 when you took an hour to compile a program. And so I've got a few gray hairs from back in the 70s and 80s computers. But it's amazing where it's come to. Our first computer had 2 4.6 megabyte disks, a 1 megahertz clock, and a 64K memory. We ran a business on it back then. So it's amazing what it's come to. And you've got their contact information there.
Yeah, you can talk to us afterwards. We'll be here for another 5-10 minutes. So.
All right, and
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck with all your projects. It's an amazing time.
I have a gift here from the OCA, the Solid Right LLP, and Deacon Light. So thanks, everyone.